Good morning. Welcome to First Unitarian Universalist Church of Rochester. We are a church of open minds and loving hearts, celebrating many sources of wisdom and many spiritual paths. Your faith, your doubts, your questions, your hopes, your identities are welcome here. Believers in God or mystery or justice or love. In this house, queer, trans, BIPOC folks, immigrants, refugees, all of who we are and are yet becoming are held as sacred. Special welcome to visitors and newcomers and those online. We're glad you're here. After service, you can join us down in the Commons for coffee and refreshments and fellowship. You can find ways to get connected in the life of the church and community. There's a preschool playroom open throughout the morning for young ones, activities for kids following the time for all ages. All are welcome. And a note about creating a welcoming space in a season of many illnesses. We have masks available always in the lobby. We encourage folks to mask or join online if you're not feeling well. Mostly just pay attention to your health and that of others so that we care for each other in this cold, wintry, ill season. And a special welcome to our guests, Olivia and Carla, the OK Factor, which you can read about in your order of service for your gifts of music this morning. We're so glad you came down and are providing such beautiful music already. So thank you for being here. Welcome. And a big thank you to all the folks that planned and donated and participated this weekend in both the Cosmology concert and the online and in-person auction. Together we raised over $20,000 for the church in our budget and well done. Good job. And over $4,700 for the Immigration Justice Fund in addition to that. So thank you so much. Thanks for your generosity. If you missed it, you can still donate to either of those funds, including buying tickets to events that still have space. There are some special dinners, a beer and theology event, a classic car ride and treats with me and Don Hansen, so all really fun stuff. But you can contact the office or visit the table in the lobby today to sign up or ask questions or to get the information you need about the auction. Each week, our offering goes out our doors to support justice work in the community. This month has been a variety of organizations, including today's, which is Journey, an advocacy organization supporting at-risk youth and their families. You can give us a Plates Pass or anytime online. And over the next few months, we're focusing on ways to both work for a just and loving world, as well as nurture your spirit here at church. It includes a presentation next Sunday of my visits to UU churches around the country during sabbatical, or a 3-series UU theology book group I'll lead in March that you can sign up for. We'll have special forums on spirituality topics, including this Wednesday on concepts of God with Derek Robertson. And for those interested in the UU pilgrimage to the Boston area, there's an info meeting about that this afternoon. So several ways to get connected, to deepen your spirituality, and nurture your spirit in these times when we need nurture and beauty and community, all. So you can find out more in your e-news or contact staff if you'd like to know about those opportunities. So this Wednesday, you can join us for supper at 5:30, followed by choir, childcare, and concepts of God. So all are welcome this Wednesday night. And finally, there's a special Building Our Future forum today at 12:30, a repeat from this past Wednesday, including the most recent designs from our architects for a new church home and important updates on where we are in both the design and funding process. So there'll be an overview if you're unfamiliar with this project or if you've been in it the whole time, new information as well. So it's 12:30 today down in the Commons. All are welcome. So that's a lot of stuff that I just said. A lot of it's in your e-news or contact the office for more. We're an active congregation and we are grateful for all the ways we're building community through service and spirituality and joy. So I invite you to take a breath. Breath of gratitude for the day and for being together. And let us enter our time of worship with these words from our minister in the 1870s, the Reverend Eliza Tupper Wilkes. May our faith in humanity and our message of hope and good cheer light our way. It's good to be together. In just a moment, Rose and Joe and I will invite you back for our opening hymn. Lyrics are in your gray hymnal, but before that, I invite you to rise in body or spirit and greet those around you.
389, sing with me as you're willing and able. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. We're going to start around with Joe.
Our chalice lighting words are by James Villa Blake. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. In gratitude, we will now receive the offering.
Sorry about that. So I don't know about you, but growing up, fairy tales were kind of a thing that were very prominent in my upbringing, be it fairy tales read to me at night or fairy tales in the form of Disney movies. And then as I grew up and became a parent myself, we had fairy tales for our kids too, but there was always this isn't quite real, right? Or during the Disney movie when you're not quite sure what's going to happen as the kids got a little older. Spoiler alert to the children. It's a Disney movie. Things are going to end okay. But as you become an adult, you realize that, the fairy tales that we hear aren't even the fairy tales in their original form, because oftentimes those fairy tales were much more frightening and gory than we know them today. So they've been rewritten over the centuries, and I think it's time that we start rewriting more fairy tales. And that's what we do with today's book, After the Fall, by Dan Santot. My name is Humpty Dumpty. This was my favorite spot high up on the wall, and I know it's an odd place for an egg to be, but I loved being close to the birds. And then one day I fell, and that's kind of what I'm famous for. Folks call it the Great Fall, which sounds a little grand because it was really just an accident. But that fall changed my life. Fortunately, all the king's men put me back together. Well, most of me at least. There were some parts that couldn't be healed with bandages and glue. After that day, I was afraid of heights. I was so scared that it kept me from enjoying some of my favorite things. If only grocery stores actually looked like that. I walked past the wall every day, and I would think about climbing that ladder again. And I really missed the birds and being high above the city. But I could never do it because I knew accidents could happen. So I eventually settled for watching the birds from the ground. I mean, it wasn't the same, but it was really better than nothing. And then one day, an idea flew by. Okay, making planes was harder than I thought. It was easy to get cuts and scratches, but day after day, I kept trying and trying until I got it just right. My plane was perfect, and it flew like nothing could stop it. Oh, I hadn't felt that happy in a long time. Again, it wasn't the same as being up in the sky with the birds, but it was close enough. Unfortunately, accidents happen, as they always do. I almost walked away again, but then I thought about the time I'd spent working on my plane and all the other things I'd missed, and I decided I was going to climb that wall. But the higher I got, the more nervous I felt, and I didn't want to admit it, but I was terrified. I didn't look up, I didn't look down, I just kept climbing and climbing one step at a time, until I was no longer afraid. Maybe now you won't think of me that egg who is famous for falling. Hopefully, you'll remember me as the egg who got back up. And learned how to fly. If the children will join me while we have the children's benediction, we'll go down and continue our lesson.
I imagine you've read the story, The Ugly Duckling, but I wonder how many of you have read The Really Ugly Duckling. And it's probably safe to say that you know the gingerbread man, but what about the tale of the stinky cheese man? Or perhaps you'd be more interested in the Cinderella tell-all piece, Confessions of an Ugly Stepsister. Fractured fairy tales like these were just as fascinating to me as the originals when I was a young reader. Truth be told, they're still some of my favorite stories. By definition, a fractured fairy tale is the retelling of something well-known, but with changes to certain plot points, characters, settings, or told from a different point of view. Some of these retellings are just to poke fun at the conventional stories using humor, while other examples take on the task of changing what the reader might take away and learn, updating its moral to reflect a more contemporary or current time. Take for popular example, Wicked. On its surface, the story of the Wizard of Oz from Elphabas or the Wicked Witch of the West point of view. But if you've watched the movie or the play or read the novel, you know the plot thickens to be a reflection on evil and who or what has the power to name it. It is a story about the propaganda and systems of oppression that peddle fear when someone looks different, challenges those in power, and how resistance and resilience can look in spite of it all. It is not lost on me, as I'm sure it's not lost on you either, the terrifying irony that this impactful retelling is breaking box office records as one of the most watched movies ever, while at the same time, the reality of our own systems of oppression and fear-mongering are front and center again. Those who hold on to an outdated narrative, pushing a narrow version of how life should be lived, are empowered again at a national and in-our-faces level. Fractured. Absolutely a word I would use to describe how I am feeling and making sense of the state of things. And while there have been times this week, my despair and my fear have felt so great, it's as if I was falling into the deep abyss of a crevice, or my anger so fiery, it's like I had my own hammer adding to the fracture, smashing away. I have mostly tried to stay grounded and live the story that I want to tell and would want to hear. One that moves through obstacles with perseverance, joy, and compassion, joined by a diverse list of characters to listen to and gain wisdom from, and most importantly, a beloved community to support and be supported by. Mine will not be a story of solitude or complacency. So even though fractured means broken or unable to function in its conventional definition, which again does ring true a little bit, I am choosing to also adopt the idea that we are living in the opportunity of a significant retelling, one that does not change its history for comfort or convenience, but faces it. A story written with multiple authors, uplifting perspectives who have been and are being directly silenced. And maybe most importantly, one that has an unshakable theme of hope, despite a changed setting that does not want us to realize our collective power or our worthiness. So, there is another story in this goofy little book that I love called The Tortoise and the Hare, hare spelled H-A-I-R, where instead of racing each other, the rabbit is trying to grow his hair faster than the tortoise can run. It concludes with these lines. Tortoise ran, rabbit grew his hair. Tortoise ran, rabbit grew his hair. Tortoise is still running, rabbit is still growing his hair. Not the end. And people, it's not the end yet.
Good morning. It is good to be with you. I invite you to settle in here as we create a place of communal caring and connection. It's our time to pause amidst the busyness of our lives, to slow down enough to consider the beauty that is here all around us, and to open a space for listening and love. Here we honor all who support us in this caring, loving, and all-inclusive ministry. We send gratitude to Julie Gilkinson, serving as our caring coordinator, arranging care for our members and friends in need. The members of our caring committee are wonderful examples of our compassionate community, holding us up as we go through challenging and happy times. And life can be challenging. We could all use some extra support with what life throws at us. And if you are experiencing those challenges, we encourage you to reach out for support and help. If you need additional care or personal pastoral care, please reach out to Reverend Luke or myself. In this community, we share pieces of our lives with one another. We do this because all people here have value. Each person's experience matters. We lift up those who are experiencing sadness, illness, or loneliness. May the strength and love in our congregation help guide you. And we revel in those who are experiencing joys in their lives. May their happiness lift us all, and may their joy filter into all around them. Please hold Lynn Stamsher in your thoughts. Lynn's father, Bud Polk, who resides in Florida, suffered a massive stroke on Thursday. We send healing wishes to him and strength to the family as they support his recovery. And Sandy and John McLaughlin share the news of their daughter Amy, who grew up in the church, and now, because of the multiple effects of long COVID, often feels her life is limited and isolated. She is, however, through her Substack platform, I had to look that up. That is a platform that allows writers to publish newsletters directly to their audience. It's called Nevertheless Persisting, is a warrior for medical system and insurance reform related to long COVID. We think a flood of cards would be a joy for Amy. Please consider sending her uplifting wishes, and we hold her in her continued recovery. The cards of support and well wishes are welcome for all. The cards of support list that is compiled weekly contains several members and friends of the church who are experiencing sadness or celebration, and is posted down in the entryway of the church as well as through a link in your e-news. We provide cards and postage and welcome you to leave those cards down by the basket for mailing. Here, our service to each other, to the world, and to our faith is our focus. Let us carry that out into the wider world. May the faith in the spirit of life, love for the community of earth, and love for the light in each other be ours now and in all the days to come.
I invite you to take a deep breath. Breathe deep the breath of life. Feel below you the earth and its ancient turning. Above you the sky, and beyond that the stars shining with their ancient light, holding you in this moment, this breath. You yourself made of earth and stars. Know that in this house you're named, you're known as beloved, as sacred. Invite you into this time of meditation, this time of prayer, first by sharing silence together. Spirit of life, source of love, God and Gaia of 1,000 names and beyond all naming. As the old evils of greed and fear, of oppressions too many to name, meant now to overwhelm and confound our hope, remind us of our power. The everyday, seemingly insignificant and tiny miracles that still lead us, even now, into our birthright to freedom and joy. Help us notice how defiant, resilient beauty springs forth in melody and song, fills canvases and coloring pages, shows up at the bedside or along tiny desks or within meals made with love, because it is only breath by breath, one interaction at a time, where we remind each other again of our very human ability to create love and art and kindness and compassion and beauty, right in the midst of struggle and uncertainty and in the face of fear. How we keep rising again and again, each day, each choice for love. We hold in our hearts this day all those who suffer in mind, body, or spirit. I invite you to bring the names you're holding in your own heart this day in joy or sorrow, and silently or aloud now in this time, just speak their names. For the names spoken and unspoken, may we be held in love. These words of meditation are an excerpt from The Butterfly Effect by Julian Jamaica Soto. They write, "I wish the knowledge were easier to come by, that individualism is just a scam, that you are always the butterfly wings, you are always the storm. A weather scientist from MIT is sometimes misquoted on this as the premise that the flap of a butterfly wing can cause a hurricane in a different part of the world. Shorthand that isn't all close to a representation of the math-turned-scientist's work. He proposed that should we make even a tiny alteration to nature, we will never know what would have happened if we had not disturbed it, since changes are then too complex and entangled to return to a previous state, which is to say that you have an immeasurable effect on the system. It will change you and it will shape its DNA. You must not believe the lie that you do not matter, that whatever change you can organize is so insufficient as to not be worth your time or your energy or your life force. You must be willing to dream a dream that carries forward a community, because this is how we rise," they write. "This day is polluted with a mistrust of truth, fertile and warm medium for unchecked cruelty and power. You must choose to scream the truth until every leaf and stone bears unrepentant witness to what happens when you try to cage or smash or pin or frame a butterfly and their thousands and thousands of fabulous and flamboyant friends." May the words of this poet and the old song we'll sing now together make tyrants tremble as they hear a people refusing to keep from singing. I invite you to rise in body or spirit as we sing.
The first reading is Optimism by Jane Hirschfield. More and more, I have come to admire resilience, not the simple resistance of a pillow whose foam returns over and over to the same shape, but the sinuous tenacity of a tree. Finding the light newly blocked on one side, it turns in another. A blind intelligence, true, but out of such persistence arose turtles, rivers, mitochondria, figs, all this resinous, unretractable earth. The second reading is She Who Wrote by Elizabeth Willis. The first writer to sign her name to a poem is said to be Enheduwa, a Mesopotamian woman who wrote on a tablet millennia before Mary's son divided the clock into before and after. She served Inanna, Queen of Heaven, who appears with her foot on the back of a lion she's taken on a short leashed walk. Part of Inanna's work is domestication, to civilize another creature as a mother would, showing the power of her existence through a body that will outlive her. Civilization is what makes childhood a captivity narrative. Writing is a refusal that captivity is the end.
Thank you, Olivia and Carla. There are the ones that you find that are sunk halfway underground, on a slope or at an angle, the soil itself shifting imperceptibly over years and years, slowly pulling stone back into earth, worn over decades, centuries even, by the storm of sky and time, making it impossible to make out any name, let alone an epitaph. Like in this image from the burial ground at King's Chapel in Boston. It's the oldest Unitarian church in America. We visit it each year on pilgrimage. There are other grave markers, ones that are hidden away that you just come across on the way to somewhere else, like this one where you read about the founder of the bookmobile of the United States that you just happen upon. And then there are the ones that have to be added later to the original one, like this one for Louisa May Alcott, next to the simple one so that sojourners can find it, next to my eldest daughter. Or the one marked with a giant red cross, like this one, the marking place for Clara Barton in the midst of a light rainstorm there. Or somewhere between Block 13 and Lot 5 at Mount Pleasant Cemetery in Sioux Falls to find this marker, the one for the Reverend Eliza Tupper Wilkes. As a side note, while on sabbatical, I visited a lot of graves. The names of our children, Louisa and Clara, intertwined with our religious ancestors. You can find out more next week at the Sabbatical Forum at 12:30. But some things get etched in stone that you might think are going to last forever, and yet it takes some work to uncover and remember and keep living the stories that are buried there. Because the stories, like loved ones, are not buried in the ground, wrote Joy Harjo. They're buried in the heart. The first writer to sign her name to a poem is said to be Edhunana, writes the poet. A Mesopotamian woman who wrote on a tablet, "Writing is a refusal that captivity is the end." This ancient poet, writing in stone thousands of years ago in a time and culture that was in so many ways less patriarchal than our culture now, breaking through some of the most ancient forms of gender roles. Women are present in so much of the art, depicted dining with men, and they are artists at pottery wheels and writing music and poetry, weaving and creating fabrics, brewing beer, and in some of her poems, she depicts a powerful goddess, Inanna Ishtar, purposely melding various stories into a plurality as a symbol and a combative force with equal powers of love and abundance and fierceness. And in some of the first illustrations ever found alongside text in history, the goddess topples the god down the mountain victorious in an ancient feminist power that is, in fact, written in stone. Stories of liberation are found again and again rising up in the face of staggering threat. Like a bishop of a Washington cathedral, as she proclaimed to a self-absorbed president who later had a tantrum about being gracefully and skillfully scolded, what leadership and justice is, and what any God worth worshiping is about: liberation, compassion, justice, and life abundant. Christian churches throughout the world today, no joke, their scripture text is about Jesus preaching about welcome of the stranger and the immigrant and the foreigner, and the ruling leaders getting mad at him for saying that. Good Lord. There are stories stretching back to the earliest ones of liberation and communal well-being instead of fear and blame and greed. Expressing our truths openly, bravely, freely, and creating spaces and communities where that full expression is not just tolerated, not just allowed in the most constricted, narrow sense, but encouraged, celebrated, welcomed. To know the truth that many stories is what brings us light and truth and hope and brings us in. That is one of our central values in our tradition, pluralism, the idea that many stories bring greater wisdom. That is core to our story, a wide tent to ever-unfolding scriptures of poetry and science, nature and art, all of which inspire us and challenge us to break the old, tired, false stories apart, to more fully live the stories that are ever-changing. The earth shows us itself swallowing up stone over time, the ways in which something as seemingly fixed as solid ground is always in motion. Science and poets have known and told this story for millennia, the movement, the shifting, the changing that is always happening all the time, sometimes so slowly you can barely notice. Something like this is happening in my backyard. Years ago, we planted a birch tree, a favorite in our family and one we wanted to have present in our then new home here in Rochester. We planted it ourselves with just enough knowledge to plant it okay. And over the years, given the amount of ground shift in that part of the town and probably the not super centered planting practices to begin with, it started leaning quite a bit to one side. And as it grew, it got closer and closer to some pesky wires. Not a huge concern, but enough for us to notice. So we tried a few things over time, like staking it down to help guide growth, but mostly we knew it was kind of too late for that. And mostly we knew this little birch tree trying to grow was competing for light with the old big birch, or the old other tree next to it, this crabapple tree, this crabby tree. And while the larger tree, the crabby tree, wasn't inherently bad, and maybe just our planting process and planning wasn't great, it was still encroaching on the area and taking the light. So what we thought, and what an arborist later confirmed, was that staking wasn't going to help this late in the game, but they noticed, and we noticed looking at the top, the smallest branches at the very top were starting to shift and starting to curve, and leaning not toward the heavy lean of the tree anymore, but starting to go the other way, curving around the encroaching tree toward the light again. Some combination of phototropism, how plants grow toward light, or crown shyness, maybe how some trees leave room between themselves in the forest crown for equity and survival and access to light and life. They leave a little space. They're introverted trees. They'd want to not be too close to the others. But this birch, leaning way too far to the right, let's say, started following the lead of the brave little small branches starting to lean left toward light and life and flourishing. Isn't that always how it goes? So in the last several months, the overall lean of this tree has lessened, moved from those pesky wires, and the tree, with a little help from an elder near the root, there's a shoot down below that was shifted just a bit to help bolster the strength up. And it gave the little ones at the top just enough strength to trace a new direction. It's almost always what happens. The youngest, newest shoots help guide the way around obstacles toward light. So often we need just enough encouragement from those who came before, leaning on their strength a bit to find our way up and out toward fresh, free air. As Allison Russell and Brandi Carlile sing in one of my new favorite songs, they say, "I wish I could keep you from sorrow and harm. None of us is here for long, but you're not alone. And in the cradle of the circle are the ones who came before. Their strength is yours now, 'cause you're not alone." We are a tangle of stories, some of them taking up way too much space, spreading wide, blocking out light from others. We are a tangle of stories, things etched in stone that fade away over time as a reminder that none of us are here for long. And yet there is meaning and power and strength and courage and love and joy found in the telling of these stories, the naming of these stories, even if they do not last forever. Something doesn't need to be immortal to be immeasurably important, beautiful, and lasting. It is in the smallest, seemingly fleeting moments, I think, in my life, and I'm sure in yours, places, people, stories, branches that keep recreating themselves, keep finding new ways to express life and life abundant, to bring love in the midst of struggle, to embody beauty in ways that sustain us, not forever and ever, but for right now, this moment, and for the slow, persistent reaching toward opening things up. Quaker activist Douglas Gwynn wrote this: "Patience is an active condition of the spirit. It can march, it can demonstrate, and it can live in jails. It can survive the long haul of transformation." If nothing else, we are made, if we're honest, of fractured stories that at their best open us up to something new and life-giving and generative. If nothing else, we're made, if we're honest, of the shifting muddy ground of earth, dust to dust, which keeps coming to life. The swallowed-up gravestones remind us that we return to the earth again and again, and from that new life grows. The long haul of transformation, this persistent reaching towards something with no guarantee, but makes the living toward it filled with meaning and artistry and resilience and hope. Because more and more I have come to admire resilience, writes the poet. Not the simple resistance of pillow whose foam returns over and over to the same shape, but the tenacity of a tree. Finding the light newly blocked on one side, it turns. And out of such persistence arose turtles, rivers, mitochondria, figs, all of this unretractable earth. We are made of stories that go deep down, roots that stretch far beyond what we believe is possible sometimes. So when the fairy tales we're being told to believe about hard work bringing riches, about people from other countries being criminals, about women or trans folks or poor folks or disabled folks or immigrant folks or black folks or so many others being blamed for all the problems that we're told, oh, they're really being treated more fairly than white men, I think. When we're told those blatant lies, those lies about America being the brightest and the best, maybe the fracturing of that false story, the dismantling of that narrative is opening it up, not destroying it. Like an egg finding their way back up to liberation. Like a branch weaving past an obstacle slowly and persistently. Like a poet's word written in stone in such a way that it knows it's not about permanence, but change. Persistently reaching, opening toward life. Because somewhere I heard, people, it's not the end. May that be so. Amen. The hymn is Rising Green, 1068 in the Teal hymnal. I invite you to rise in body or spirit as we sing.
Stars
I invite you, as you're comfortable, place a hand on your heart or toward the sky or earth in gratitude, and breathe deep the breath of life. And in the words of one of our oldest stories from our Universalist heritage, go yonder, and gather the people. Give them not hell, but courage and hope. Give them something of the love you have found here, and tell all the people that love is our home. Amen.